Hello and welcome to India's World. In a recently released videotape, Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri has announced the opening of a new branch targeting India, Bangladesh, Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Zawahiri, who is thought to be hiding in Pakistan, claimed that this had become possible after a 2-year effort to consolidate and merge various jihadi forces in the region. Named Qaidatul Jihad in the Indian subcontinent, or more simply as Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent, the organization would be loyal to Taliban chief Mullah Omar. The questions that we are asking today are, what does the Al-Qaeda announcement mean at a time when foreign jihadi fighters are choosing to fight in Syria and Iraq rather than in Afghanistan and Pakistan? Why has the Al-Qaeda decided to open a branch in the Indian subcontinent now when it is already headquartered in Pakistan, which is a part of the Indian subcontinent and where Zawahiri is believed to be hiding? What are the implications of Al-Qaeda spreading itself eastwards from Afghanistan and Pakistan for the countries in the region? And what are the political lessons that leaders of majority community in these countries may learn from the Al-Qaeda announcement? I'll be putting these questions to a very distinguished panel of experts. We have with us Ambassador Vivek Katju, India's ambassador to Afghanistan and Myanmar, an expert on the AFPAC region and the jihadis which operate in that region. Mr. Rana Banerjee, former Special Secretary in India's External Intelligence Agency, the Research and Analysis Wing, an expert on security and intelligence issues and a keen student of South Asia. He's also author of a book on Pakistan Army. And my old friend Dr. Awwad, a distinguished journalist. He's the chief of bureau of the Syrian Syrian Arab News Agency, I beg your pardon, SANA, in New Delhi, and follows the developments not only in Syria and Iraq, but also South Asia very closely. And you're an honorary Indian citizen, having spent half your life in this country. So I welcome all of you to this discussion. Let me begin with you, Ambassador Katju. Do you think this announcement by Ayman al-Zawahiri is a response to the challenge of the Islamic State, which seeks to replace the Al-Qaeda as the sole leader, symbol of what they call jihad?
I think partly yes. But I also believe that as far as universal jihadist forces are concerned, there was a vacuum as far as in the Indian subcontinent is concerned. Till now, their focus was largely towards the West. And this was especially so after 9/11. The Indian subcontinent, or more particularly India, because that's what our interest is, was left to the jihadist groups or the Islamist groups in Pakistan. But I've always thought that this was something which would inevitably happen. Because there is a feeling, a wrong feeling, but a feeling that there has, in these circles, jihadist circles, that not sufficient attention is being paid to the quote-unquote plight of Muslims.
My question really was it a challenge posed by the Islamic State, what was called ISIS earlier, Islamic State in Syria and Iraq?
I don't think one has to see this in an either-or situation.
Okay.
There is a leadership issue there.
Okay. But let me take that question to Mr. Banerjee. This is the first public announcement, a video of Ayman al-Zawahiri after the announcement of a caliphate by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of Islamic State. So is he trying to create a caliphate of his own in the subcontinent? Because his statement, if you read the text, it says he calls upon the Ummah, the Muslim world, to unite around the world of Tawheed or monotheism, to wage jihad against its enemies, to liberate its land, to restore its sovereignty and to revive its caliphate. Now, where was there a caliphate in South Asia which he wants to revive?
No, surely there is a competitive aspect to this, because ever since the elimination of Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri has been fighting a losing battle for acceptance of his supremacy, both in ideological and operational terms. So what had happened was that the jihadists, there was a pattern of jihadists moving from the AFPAC region to the Middle East, be it towards Yemen, Somalia, the Sahel, or Syria and Iraq. Thereafter, in Syria, we found that when the movement against the regime there gathered impetus. Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, who's a Syrian from the Golan Heights, who was leading this struggle, he had a split with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who's actually a remnant from Awlaki's group from Syria, Sunni group. So at that time, al-Jawahiri issued a sort of letter saying that he wanted Baghdadi to adhere to the leadership of Jawlani, but Baghdadi refused to do so because Baghdadi again has a more intense anti-American streak within him, and he has had this intense sort of desire to, I'll see you in New York, to the Americans when they released him from his detention in jail. Now, he's been able to establish this significant leadership and established, an area of physical dominance in the whole part of northern and western Iraq. So, Jawahiri at this moment, giving this announcement, is wanting to take advantage of a perception of, sullen resentment among Muslims in this region to establish his ideological dominance here with, of course, the demonstrative action of some violent incidents. Because today again the younger youth among the Islamic ideologues, they gravitate towards whoever is able to produce more violent actions.
Okay, Dr. Awwad, is the Islamic Jihadi movement therefore splintering or is it consolidating? Or are both processes taking place? Splintering internationally, dividing regions amongst themselves and consolidating within those regions?
I think the Al-Qaeda, when they have sent, they created an Islamic Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It was the offshoot of Al-Qaeda because Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, you remember, he was sent from Afghanistan into Iraq and they created during the American occupation. So during the occupation of Iraq by the United States, there was a creation of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Then they changed their name into the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria of Bilad al-Sham. And then after which they have had the difference between them and Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri and Bin Laden. And Bin Laden had a problem with Abu Musab al-Zarqawi of the implementation of the ideology. Yeah. The difference was not that they both of them agree.
Or consolidate?
It is now they consolidate in Iraq. They are not talking of Khalifa now. They are calling him Amir al-Muslimin. Amir al-Muslimin, which is he's the Amir that any group of Islamist people available all over the world should show loyalty to them. So therefore, they have now trying to expand under the name of Islam that wherever there is Muslim community, they should show loyalty to him. Yeah. And that is the main difference between the two. Otherwise, both are agreed on a Khilafat. They consolidated the attack on Syria and Iraq and they have made more than 40% of both the territories under their own control. Okay. Now they said this is a state, self-reliance state, built on looting and built on the stealing of the oil and the archaeological things in the countries, and now they are generating and selling oil. Now they are funding themselves within that particular geographical area. Now this is what we call the mobile anarchy. The mobile anarchy means you will, wherever there are Muslim minorities, you will try to exploit and try to create a problem.
You're saying it's the same movement, different leaders.
Absolutely.
Okay, but we've run out of time in this segment. We'll be back again with you in a bit. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing the implications of Al-Qaeda announcing setting up of a sort of a branch office in the Indian subcontinent. Vivek, how sound is the concept of Muslim jihadists around the world having a global leader, a single leader in this day and age?
Let me have one quick thing for the previous session. Yeah. Look, I'm clear in my mind that the center of gravity of the Islamic Ummah is not in South Asia, even though 1/3 of all the world's Muslims are perhaps in South Asia. Traditionally, the center of gravity has been in West Asia. And this weaves in with your question. Yeah. The struggle for supremacy in the global jihadist movement will not be waged here. Even though Osama had, for tactical reasons, had to stay in Afghanistan and had to accept that Mullah Omar was the Amirul Muslimin. But ultimately, the struggle will be waged in the Arab world. That will be where this fate of the jihadist movement will be decided. Yeah. And there is obviously going to be a personality struggle. Such personality struggles have been witnessed all through Islamic history.
So we are saying nothing new.
No, I mean, But that is why to my mind, the announcement of setting up of this particular unit, the Indian subcontinent unit, is a sideshow as far as the global jihadist movement is concerned.
Okay, point well taken. Mr. Banerjee, do you think that the creation of Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent is essentially a formalization of the cooperation and coordination that already existed between various jihadi groups in this region? And if that is so, what is common between the groups that have come together, between Afghan and Pakistani Taliban, Harkatul Mujahideen, Harkatul Jihadul Islami, Brigade 313 of Ilyas Kashmiri, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, Indian Mujahideen, Islamic Movement in Uzbekistan, Turkestan Islamic Party, Junud al-Fida, and other groups based in Afghanistan and Pakistan? What is common, and have they worked under Al-Qaeda command informally earlier?
No, it will be increasingly franchise based in my view, and the cooperation, if any, will be only loosely fragmented. There will be different leaders in different areas, and they will have a sort of broad ideological thing to create disturbance, spread anarchy, but have local fiefdoms. There will be Ahrar Hind, which is now trying to call itself the Jamaatul Ahrar in Pakistan, in northern Pakistan, which is adhered to by one group of the TTP, the Omar Khalid Khorasani group. Similarly, they have only loose
this is the breakaway group from the
Tehrik-e-Taliban, the TTP Masouds. Yeah. But to what extent they will be supported by the state sponsors will vary. I mean, the state sponsors will use them differently at different times for different.
We will come to the state sponsors in a bit. Dr. Awwad, in his statement, Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent spokesperson Osama Mahmood praised the martyrdom of 9 jihadi leaders, saying that, and I quote, that under their blessed care the tree of jihad was raised in this region. Now, 6 out of these 9 jihadi leaders that they see their heroes are actually Pakistanis. Ilyas Kashmiri, Badr Mansoor, Hassan Gul, Amjad Farooqi, Dr. Arshad Wahid, and Ehsan Aziz. Of these, 5 were killed by US drone strikes, and 1 was killed by Pakistani security forces, Amjad Farooqi, who was involved in an unsuccessful assassination attempt on General Musharraf, and was also involved in IC-814, Indian Airlines hijacking. So essentially, the Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent has Asim Umar as the leader, a Pakistani, spokesman who's a Pakistani. Their heroes, jihadi heroes, are all Pakistani. So essentially, does it show that that this is a Pakistan, I don't mean the Pakistan state just now, but I'm saying Pakistan-led extremist movement? And if that is so, how is it that Ayman al-Zawahiri is not asking not saying that we should create a caliphate in Pakistan? He wants to create it everywhere else. He's only condemned the Pakistan army as corrupt. But in the caliphate that he wants to create, is Pakistan included?
See, the whole concept or the whole project of creating Khalifa or Islamist movement is just to create havoc among the countries. It's nothing, it's a mobile anarchy, and I call it from what they have started the North African state, which is reading now to South Asia, where you remember Afghanistan. Afghanistan was this hub or center of all the extremist group who come from across the world, and then when the American came, they already scattered them and left to their own natives country, including the Mujahideen Arab, who created their own cells in Morocco, in Yemen, and in Iraq, and then they have started spreading this kind of the attitude, because Americans said it very clearly, we created Al-Qaeda, we won against the Soviet Union, so this is a similar fashion, it's an old wine in a new bottle. So they wanted to repeat the same thing in the Arab world now, where they wanted to topple all these regimes and make instability in the region. What's happening is, when you remember, there was not a single Al-Qaeda from India, neither in Kashmir, nor in Afghanistan, nor anywhere. For the last 3 decades I have been covering South Asia, we were very proudly saying that there is no single Indian, despite the fact that the second largest Muslim community in the world after Indonesia is India. Then where these people come from? It just recently with the Arab Spring which started, it is just 4 years ago when these people start recruiting, start exploiting the youth, trying to fish in the stable water in India. Turbulent water is Pakistan. Turbulent water is Afghanistan. These are the places where those jihadists have gone to Syria to fight. We have from Uzbekistan, we have from Malaysia, Indonesia, Afghanistan, even among all the region from this part of the world are fighting in Syria. What they created now, instead of going to Syria and fight there, we already established, now create havoc in your own territories. So when you have a vacuum of the American and the troops leaving Afghanistan by this year end, then you will have a security threat to India. and you have to have a contingency plan. I think we have to address how to tackle such kind of a thing.
We will be discussing that in a bit, but you were shaking your head vehemently when Awwad was speaking. Do you disagree with what he's saying?
Look, there is a jihadist enterprise.
How come it doesn't have an Indian leader? If it is Indian subcontinent, how come it doesn't have an Indian leader, a Bangladeshi leader, a Burmese leader, or a Sri Lankan leader? Why are all the leaders from Pakistan?
Because the jihadist enterprise in the subcontinent is headquartered in Pakistan, because there it has the support.
So then Al-Qaeda in Pakistan?
It has a nurturing support from the Pakistan state. That is why. And also because the large majority of Indian Muslims do not subscribe to this kind of theology,
okay,
which they practice.
All right. We need to take a break again at this point. We'll be back again with this interesting discussion in a bit. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're discussing the implications of Al-Qaeda announcing the opening of a branch office in Indian subcontinent. Mr. Banerjee, what do you think of US intelligence analyst and former National Security Council official Bruce Riedel claiming that the Pakistan Army and its intelligence wing, ISI, Inter-Services Intelligence, are behind the Al-Qaeda trying to branch out into India, Bangladesh and elsewhere in the region? He says that the Al-Zawahiri tape was probably recorded in Pakistan, where Al-Zawahiri is hiding and perhaps in connivance with the ISI. Do you agree with Bruce Riedel?
There is evidence, and of course Bruce Riedel has been very, very strong in his criticism of the ISI's activities, but he is out of active recipiation, as an active recipient of intelligence. He is out of the circle. He is now maybe not getting all the facts.
No, my question is, do you believe that, even if he didn't say it, do you believe that the Pakistan Army and the ISI are behind the Al-Qaeda branching out into India?
No, I don't
because
entirely.
Aren't they fighting them in Waziristan, North Waziristan?
They are fighting them, but certain factions only. It's a selective, controlling or splitting of the TTP, while they are keeping the Indians, asymmetrical assets very much on their string, who are not harming them or who are not attacking them. This includes the Lashkar and the Jaish and possibly the Harkat and the Hizbul Mujahideen, already based in Pakistan, but they have different objectives.
Can I just quickly get Vivek into this to supplement what you're saying? How central is the domestic politics of Pakistan to increase security threats against India? Because Riedel also says that Al-Qaeda branching out to the Indian subcontinent might be an attempt by Pakistan Army, and I quote, to secure gains against the civilian leaders. How does it achieve that goal?
I think that the Pakistan Army wishes to ensure that it maintains its control over the India policy, and the India policy is being on a certain track, and that is, in that track, it uses these Islamist groups.
Even those who are opposed to Pakistan?
Even those who are opposed to Pakistan. If it needs to, it does. But the question is, how do you define Pakistan? It will not use those groups, obviously, which are fighting the Pakistan army.
Okay.
But other groups which are not fighting the army, it uses them. And that is what is happening.
Okay. Dr. Awwad, do you think that Al-Qaeda video of Ayman al-Zawahiri is primarily designed to attract recruits from what Zawahiri considers disenfranchised and sort of increasingly marginalized Muslim population of the subcontinent, Rohingyas in Myanmar, Jamaat-e-Islami supporters who are being hanged and jailed in Bangladesh, Kashmiri Muslims and Muslims who are victims of communal riots in India, Muslims who are attacked by the Buddhist extremists in Sri Lanka? That now this is a fertile recruiting ground, he thinks, and therefore the attempt is to mobilize a new force, a terrorist force, out of these people.
That is what I have been saying. They wanted to recruit and exploit the people who have been suffering or has not been given justice. This is the problem in the South Asian region. There are poverty, there are the good cocktail they found. They have the ideology where they can spread, they have the money to give, and they have the ignorant also around this part of the world, and the exploited people. So all this cocktail is a good mixture. It's an abundant ground to recruit. But I think they have failed in this stage in India, because even Bin Laden could not recruit the Indian. That is a very clear indication you have in India, that even Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is trying to get his supremacy into Al-Qaeda because of the rift in IS, I don't see much of changes in this part of the world. They will, but there is a very important point here which we have to focus. It is the non-state actors which they are now talking about. You are creating groups where you will say the government has nothing to do with it. But if you look at the way the ISI in Pakistan and the link with Wahhabis of Saudi Arabia, where these two have created Al-Qaeda along with the United States, it are certain element within this establishment who is willing to create and nourish this kind of anarchy and this kind of instability in the part of the world, in what will be tomorrow known all over the world, the non-state actors.
They will always be non-state actors. But Vivek, how seriously have the governments of South Asia and Myanmar, how seriously have they addressed the issue of political marginalization of the various minorities in their countries? And what do you recommend they do?
Look,
because Awwad is saying there is a fertile ground. Now, how do you de-radicalize? How do you make this ground less fertile?
I think let us not exaggerate the ground. As far as I'll focus on India. As far as
you are ambassador to Myanmar. So let me ask you about Myanmar first.
No, let me first focus on India. I'll come to Myanmar.
Yeah, but quickly.
Very quickly. In India, all communities have their rights guaranteed in the constitution. There is a little politics which is played from time to time, but it is unfortunate if that politics is fanned in a manner to give a projection as if the minorities in India do not have their rights or that they are being discriminated. Now, this is an absurdity. There is poverty, but there is poverty for all.
You can't prevent Zawahiri from releasing these videos, can you? I mean, there's no point getting angry about it.
No, I'm not getting angry. What I'm saying is, let's stick to facts. Zawahiri may say this. What he is really trying to say is that, look, the attention of the Al-Qaeda has been focused elsewhere, but we have not forgotten you, brothers.
Let me ask you, Mr. Rana Banerjee. Do you think the political leadership in India, since you're talking about India, and I don't mean only those in the government, should see the Al-Qaeda threat also as a kind of a wake-up call for not using religious polarization and religious violence for furthering their politics?
Absolutely. This definite effort should be made to at least change this perception that the present government here is not sufficiently concerned about inclusivity of bringing in Muslims in the entire development model that they are going to pursue.
Dr. Awwad, you've been living here for more than 2 decades. What do you have to say? Is this a wake-up call for Indian politicians, and not only Indian politicians in Myanmar, politicians in Sri Lanka? Bangladesh is a very special case. They're dealing with a different kind of extremism.
Absolutely. This is, you see, when I interviewed Mr. Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, I asked him why radicalism is growing in your country. How did you deal with it? He said, we counter it with the same cause. When you create an awareness among the public that whatever these people, extremists, are trying to sell in your own country is wrong, is not even has anything to do with Islam, and then you increase what we say, the Indian kind of justice. India is very strong, and as Ambassador said, it's impossible to penetrate at this stage as long as you have a free media, you have a free jurisdiction system, and you have a good governance. If the government is in a power, trying not to polarize the society, willing to take everybody on board, I think India can really, will be just an offshore call by the Al-Qaeda, but should not be take complicity in this one also. We need to be very strong.
Last word to you. Is there any need to de-radicalize the minority youth? It doesn't matter if it's a very minuscule minority now, because leadership is always marginal, it's always vanguardist, and society always changes on the margins first. So do you think there's a need to de-radicalize minority youth, and what needs to be done?
De-radicalization is now a fashionable concept in the West. In the West, Islam is a relatively new phenomena in their societies. In India, on the other hand, it has existed for 1,000 years. Yes. It is part of the warp and weft of our society.
So we don't need to do anything.
And therefore, I am confident that what the Muslim community in India looks for is a guarantee of their constitutional rights And I have no doubt in my mind, and I have no suspicion that any government in India will move away from the path of constitutionalism.
Therefore, we don't have to worry about the Al-Qaeda threat except as a terrorist threat.
Please, we have to worry about the Al-Qaeda threat as we have to worry about any terrorist threat.
Okay.
For that purpose, we've got to be vigilant, and I'm confident that our agencies and our institutions of state, which have a fairly long record of dealing with these threats successfully, will be able to face this threat.
Mr. Banerjee, do you agree with him?
Yes, substantially.
Okay, good. Okay, we've run out of time. I would like to thank all my guests, Dr. Awwad, Mr. Banerjee, Ambassador Vivek Katju for coming here and discussing this issue. Thank you very much, and I hope we'll have you again soon to discuss other more pleasant issues. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week with another interesting issue. Till then, goodbye and thanks for watching.